I wanted to show you guys how to fill out a RPA, which is a residential purchase agreement. I'm gonna go to this document in Glide. You guys can do this in Glide, which you guys will probably use most of the time, or you could access this document through your car.org account. Once you're in Glide and you've created a transaction, you're gonna have a little documents tab on the left side. Once you go to that, you'll see the add documents button right here. Once you click that, you'll add from the library. From the library, this is all of the forms that you have access to with your car membership. So you're just gonna type in RPA, and that'll bring up the residential purchase agreement, and then you'll click it, add documents, and you can add it to whatever property that you're writing an offer on. So once you have that, you'll click on the purchase agreement. And I'm going to show you guys how to fill this out from what's standard and traditional. So every offer that you write may be a little bit different. Some offers, you might have to change the terms, but this will be a broad overview of what it will look like, what you'll need to fill out, and some of the reasonings on why you'll do that. Always feel free to call me or text me with any questions that you have on this. And if you are writing an offer after you watch this video, feel free to send it to me so I can take a look at it and make sure everything looks good before you send it out for signatures. So when you scroll down to the first page, the first and second page is your disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. This is attached to every single offer. This is going to go over the obligations and the fiduciary duties that you have as a seller's agent, a buyer's agent, and if you're an agent representing both the buyer and the seller, as well as kind of what the seller and buyer responsibilities are. So I'm not going to go through every single page with you, but I will give you an overview of what they are. When you guys have time, you guys need to go into the purchase agreement and read every page so you have a thorough understanding. And if you have questions after reading it, you can reach out and let me know. So you'll go down, you'll fill out right here whoever the buyer is. I already put the buyer's information in here. You would put, if they're an individual or if they're a LLC or a corporation, their first and last name, their email, their phone number. You don't have to put their mailing address unless you have it, but if not, it's okay. You would just press save, okay? Second, you're gonna fill out your information. So I know it's a little confusing. Technically, your broker is eXp Realty of Northern California. So when you click on this, you'll see I have my information right here, my DRE license, my broker. Here's the information that you will put. This will be the same information that you put on your contracts as well. So I know sometimes it's going to be tempting to put Avenue Real Estate. Yes, you will be able to do that in the future, just not right now. So in the future, or for right now, put eXp Realty of Northern California. That is their accurate DRE license number that you will put. Same with the branch address. This will be the exact information you're going to put for your information. Once you have that, you can click save. You will go down, and then you're going to scroll down to, now this is the first page of the residential purchase agreement. So all of the terms are going to be on the first two pages of this agreement. So what I have here is a purchase agreement that's already filled out for an offer that I wrote. I'm going to go down this with you, and I'm going to tell you what's customary for the Sacramento area, and I'll tell you a little bit of, sometimes it could be different. Now, what I do doesn't mean you have to do it the exact same way, but if you do something different, you're either going to be making your offer weaker by changing those terms or stronger by changing those terms. So you have the offer from the buyer's name that you put up there, the property address. You're going to have to find the APN number. You'll go to tax records and Metro List, look up the address, and it'll pop the APN number for you. You'll input it right there, okay? Now, under 2B, you have the confirmation of who's representing who. So the listing agent works for Lion Real Estate in Elk Grove. This is her name, and this is me representing the buyer as I'm writing up the offer. And I work for eXp, and there's my name. Now, you do have to check one of these boxes, okay? So since we work at different brokerages, they're representing the seller, I'm representing the buyer. Now, if, for example, someone else, if this was a different listing agent and they worked at EXP, even if her name was Jessica and it wasn't me, you guys are both representing the buyer and the seller. It does not go off of who the listing agent is. It goes off of who the brokerage is. So if you guys have the same brokerage, you guys are both representing the buyer and the seller. It's a dual agency, okay? Now, this will auto-populate the license numbers for the brokerages for you because you put that info in. Same thing with the listing agent if you add them as a contact to the contract. When you scroll down to 3A, you have the purchase price. You're going to put in whatever purchase price. This one is $330. You just click it and fill it in. If it's cash, you would check cash. If it's a loan, obviously you're not going to check it. Now, close of escrow could be anything between, typically if it's cash, it can be 10 days to usually 30 days, which is standard. If you're getting a loan, you have to talk to the lender. You have to ask the lender, be on the same page as the lender, and understand how quick they could get the loan done and how quick they can close. Most lenders, like Fee, can close in 21 days if it's there's nothing crazy in the loan, right? So you have to have that conversation, put in 21 days, figure out how long you need close of escrow to be for the lending side, and then you can put that in. I'm going to put 21 days now. And then if you go to 3C, which is expiration of offer, if you don't change anything, you technically have 3 calendar days after all buyer signatures is how good your offer is valid for. Now, if you want to change it and say, you're in a time crunch and you want an answer within 24 hours, well, you can change that and then you go put the date of tomorrow, okay? So if you don't put anything, it will be 3 days after all signatures from the buyer, okay? 3D1 is the initial deposit. This is typically, I put $4,300 in there because it's standard that it's at least 1% of the purchase price. So within 3 days, you'll see in additional terms, within 3 days of getting your offer accepted, the buyer will have to put in this deposit. This deposit is a good faith deposit that will be sent to that the buyer will send to the title company on whoever the title company is, and it'll stay there as a good faith deposit. Now, if you go to 3E, this is the loan amount. So if they are getting a loan, you put whatever loan amount they're getting. So if they're putting 20% down, then you figure out, or if they're putting 20% down, then they're getting a loan for 80% of that 430 number. You do quick math and you would put it in right here. Okay, you can leave the rest of this blank. And now if they're getting a conventional loan, you don't have to check any of the boxes on the right side. But if they're getting an FHA loan or a VA loan, you will have to check this box, which will then generate another additional form at the end of your purchase agreement that you'll have to fill out, okay? On to the 3E, number 3. If you don't check anything, this is saying that you're writing this offer and the buyer is going to have this as their primary residence. If this is a secondary home or an investment, make sure to check the box, okay? Then this will auto-populate to whatever the balance of the down payment is plus the total purchase price. You don't have to change these numbers. It'll do it automatically when you input these numbers above. Down to the second page of the RPA, row G, this is if your seller needs a credit of any, or if you're gonna ask for a seller credit of any type, this is where you would put that. So if they say, hey, we want $10,000 towards closing costs, well, okay, you go down to this line, you check the box, you put $10,000, okay? If you don't change anything, it'll say seller credit to be applied to closing costs, okay, unless you specify otherwise. This is where you're gonna put all of the seller credits that you're asking for. This is a very important box to check. This is a new box for all of us since after the NAR laws have changed. This says seller agrees to pay the obligation of buyer to compensate buyer's broker under a separate agreement. This is an SPBB. If you click this, it'll automatically populate this form. This is basically saying when you are writing up an offer and you want the seller to still pay you your commission as the buyer's agent, you have to check this form in order to clarify that, as well as fill out the SPBB form that will be attached. So it's very, very important that you do not forget to check this box right here. Most of the time, from what I've seen as of right now, it's very common that the buyer's broker will still ask the sellers to pay their commission, okay? So most of the time you will be checking that box. Now when you go down to line H1, 2, and 3, this is going to be going over the verification of cash, verification of down payment, verification of loan application. If you don't change anything, you don't put anything in here, it's going to say that it's attached to the offer. So that means that you're showing proof of funds, that your buyer's qualified, that they have a loan approval. You will have to check, what do they have? Do they have a pre-approval? Are they fully underwritten? Are they pre-qualified, right? It gets from worse to better. So a pre-qual is not as good as a pre-approval. A pre-approval is not as good as having a fully underwritten pre-approval. So make sure you clarify with fee or the lender to make sure you know exactly what they have. Most of the time, they'll probably just have a pre-approval. Okay? Now, under line J and K, it's intentionally left blank right here. For the final verification of condition, it says 5 days if you do not change it prior to close of escrow. This means that when you are about to close, within 5 days, you'll do your final walkthrough, basically with your buyer, making sure that the property is in the same condition it was when you guys went to go first look at it. Okay, this isn't a time where you go find out things that are wrong with it that you could have asked for but didn't. That time is over. That is not how this works. This is a time to make sure the property is in the same condition it was before. Okay, assignment request 17 days after acceptance. Most of the time you will not be needing this unless you're dealing with a wholesaler of some sort. Okay, I have now under that you have your contingencies. This is a very important part of your contract. You have the loan contingency, which is, if you don't change it, 17 days after acceptance, which is pretty standard. You can leave that there at 17 days unless the lender says either they need more time or they can do it quicker. Sometimes they can do it in 14 or so days if they're on it. Same thing with the appraisal. If you don't change it, 17 days after acceptance, that's standard. Usually you may be able to get away with 14 days if the lender is going to order the appraisal as soon as you get in contract, okay? And if for some reason they're like, oh, we're going to make our offer super strong and we don't need an appraisal contingency or a loan contingency, call me, make sure we think it's a good idea for the client to do that, but you would then check these boxes as well as the removal or waiver of contingency, CRB, which would be attached. After that, you're going to go to your investigation of property contingency. It says 17 days after acceptance. That is no longer standard. The California Association of Realtors just has not updated this yet. It is very standard that you have 10 days after acceptance to do all of your inspections and remove your investigation of property contingency. Does that mean on the 11th day, if you haven't completed it, you're screwed? No, it does not. Usually if you need more time, the seller is going to give it to you. You just got to ask for it. Sometimes you can't even schedule inspections for a week out. So, but it's standard. They want to see 10 days on there. Okay, same thing for all of these. Insurance, you can leave at 17. Review of seller documents, 10. Preliminary title report, 10. Common interest disclosures, 10. Okay, so all of these will be 10. That's very standard. If it's more, you're probably going to get a counter putting it back to this timeline right here. On line L9, this is sale of buyer's property. If the buyer has to sell a property in order to buy this property that we're writing an offer on, you're going to check this form. It's going to attach a contingency of property form that you're going to have to fill out. So if you check this box, you're going to fill out one additional form at the end of the contract. This is only if they need to sell a property in order to buy this one, and it's contingent on them selling a property. Okay? Past that, you have possession. If you don't change anything, which you should leave it how it is, you will be able to give your buyer the keys upon notice of recording with the county. So as soon as title sends you an email saying we have recorded with the county, you can then go to the property and give the buyer the keys. If on M2, this is only going to be used in unique circumstances. So if for some reason when you hear the term rent back, this is what they are talking about, okay? If the seller needs a rent back of some sort for an additional amount of time after you close escrow, this is where you're going to put that. If you put one of these, another form will be attached that you will have to fill out. Okay. Under document fees and compliance, it says seller delivery of documents. If you don't change anything, it will say 7. I recommend changing it to a little bit sooner. Remember, you only have 10 days, so you want to get those disclosures as soon as possible. I would say 5 days is a good amount of time to get those documents. That gives you another 5 days to review, make sure there's nothing, crazy in the disclosures. This is where you would find out if someone died in the house, someone, all the things that could be wrong, or any upgrades or anything that they know about the property. As well as here, you can leave all of this the standard of what it is, like install smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, water heater bracing. Okay. Next page 3, you have items included and excluded. So you're going to want to make sure that you check the boxes for the things that your client wants to stay, that your buyer wants to stay with the property. Most likely the stove, which is very standard. Okay. Maybe they have a dishwasher. That's very standard. Microwave, very standard. These 3 things, most of the time, will always stay with the property. Anything more than that, if they have a fridge, sometimes the seller wants to take it. Sometimes they're willing to leave it. That's a negotiable item that you can ask for. Maybe they allow it, maybe they don't. Same thing with the washer, dryer, and all of these other items here. Okay, so you'll go through here and check the boxes that you wish to have stay with the property. Under the allocation of costs on Q1, you have a natural hazard zone disclosure report. This is going to have to be required for your file. It's very standard that the seller pays for this. Click environmental, and it's provided by, I like to use Snap NHD. They're a preferred partner of ours, so they meet all the requirements for your file, and they do a good job, and it's cheap. Most of them are all around the same price of about $99. This will get added to your seller's closing costs at the end once they get out of their proceeds. So it's very standard, seller pays for it. Now, down to Q4, I always put that the seller will make sure that there's smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, and water heater bracing. This is important because if you are getting a loan on the property and the appraiser goes out there and there is no smoke alarms, no carbon monoxide detectors, or the water heater is not braced, then you're going to have to probably pay a reappraisal fee for them to come back out once you have put those items on. So it's important that they do that from the beginning to make sure that the appraiser does not have to come out again. Depending on where you are, you may have some government required point of sale inspections reports. For example, in Davis, there is one. In Sacramento, Placer, Yolo, most parts of Yolo, you're not going to have to deal with that. If you run into a circumstance like that, feel free to reach out to me and we can kind of talk that over. The next one that you're going to need to fill out is Q7, escrow fees. Okay. In this circumstance, think to yourself, what is fair? Most of the time, if you don't know what to put, think what's fair. What's fair is you pay 50%, they pay 50%. So you can always put split 50-50. And these, it is very common that you will see they split 50-50 for the escrow fees. Let me type that in so you can see how I do it. Split 50-50. Escrow holder, if you're a buyer's agent and you don't want to get a tedious counter, put seller's choice. It's very common that the seller gets to pick the title company. If you want to pick the title company, get more listings and you'll be able to pick who you want to use. But to make your offer strong and avoid those tedious counters, put seller's choice. For owner's title insurance, you can put the seller. Now, if you want to make your offer a little bit stronger, you can have it split 50-50, but most of the time, you'll just have the seller pay for the owner's title insurance. For here, you're going to put the same thing, seller's choice. It'll all be the same company that they pick. Okay, for county transfer tax fees, city transfer tax fees, I like to put split 50-50. I don't think it makes that big of a difference, but it makes your offer look a lot stronger. So I'll put it. If not, you can have the seller pay for it. Remember, if you make a change, it's either going to make your offer weaker or stronger. I think this makes your offer and your terms seem very good and shows the seller that you are a very reasonable person and you're probably not going to be asking for anything extreme, which increases the chances that you'll close. If it has an HOA, you can put either both, split 50-50 for the transfer fees, or the seller. So for a home that does not have an HOA, you would just leave this blank, okay? Now, I always like to have the seller pay for the first year home warranty for our buyer, so that way when they move in, they know they have a year. If something breaks or something goes wrong, they got a home warranty to cover them. So you have the seller pay for it to not exceed $750. You can put issued by your home warranty preference, or you can put buyer's choice, so you can have them pick a company that they like, okay? But make sure to fill that out. It's very important. I mean, the seller's paying for it most of the time. They're willing to pay for it. It's pretty standard that they do, and it kind of covers your buyer for when they move in for the first year. Those are mainly all of the terms that you have in the RPA. All of the terms are on the first 3 pages of the RPA, which is the residential purchase agreement. After that, you're going to have a whole bunch of legal terms, okay? There's nothing to necessarily fill out here, but it is the lovely California legal terms that you'll need to know. Spend some time reading this. This will go over all of the different terms for like buyer investigation of property, you know, what to know for title, investing, and all of seller's right to cancel, buyer's right to cancel, review of documents, right? This kind of breaks the contract up so you can thoroughly understand it and know exactly how it would work in certain situation and what certain things mean. So spend some time, read this, go over it. There's no terms that you need to fill out here. There is one thing over on page 14 right here. This is liquidated damages and arbitration of disputes and mediation. So you're gonna have your buyer sign this. Sometimes when you click it to have it DocuSign or Glide signatures, it might not auto-populate here. So just go down to page 14, make sure it's signed, because if the seller signs it and the buyer doesn't, or vice versa, you do not technically have a ratified contract. You need to make sure both parties are agreed upon for these. So keep that in mind, just look out for that. When you go down here, you keep scrolling, you will either get this back from the seller, and this is where you'll see if it's been accepted or not. You'll see they'll either check that you got a counter, you have backup offer, addendum, or it got rejected. One of the 3 or one of the 4. So other than that, all your information is right here, and you will continue to read all of this. And if you have questions after you read it, you can ask me, let me know. But take the time to read this, because if you do not, I promise every person, agent, including myself, that has not read this thoroughly and did transaction has gotten put in a spot where they didn't want to be, and probably had to either pay something or get out of a situation by giving either the buyer or the seller some money, or paying for something that we said was going to happen and didn't happen, because that's not how the contract was. So read it, spend some time, master this contract. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope this helped, and hopefully you guys will be filling this out many, many times and reviewing these for all of your listings and your buyers. Cheers. See you on the next one.